Good afternoon, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Disciples and Devotees. Today, again, we are with Kittu Reddy on the ideal of human unity, Chapter 6.
Chapter 6, and then we'll move on to Chapter 7. So last time we discussed empires, ancient and modern. And in the ancient world, the Roman Empire was one of those empires which lasted 4 to 5 centuries. How did they manage that? They managed it because they gave all the privileges to every member of the empire, civic privileges, etc., etc. And they tried one more thing, which is very crucial. They tried to make all the different parts of the empire feel proud and identified with the Roman culture. So the Gauls felt that their culture is Roman, or they tried to do it and they partially succeeded. The Gauls, the Britons, etc., etc., etc. But then, and this is a very important sentence I am going to read. So far the Romans succeeded. Where he failed, it was due to the essential vice of his method. There was a serious error. By crushing out, however peacefully, the living cultures or the incipient individuality of the peoples he ruled, he deprived these peoples of their sources of vitality, the roots of their force. This I have explained last time, but I think I'll explain again, and if you have any questions you can ask. The living cultures of their incipient individuality. Incipient means going to be born, nascent. Now when you lose your identity and your culture, inevitably, however happy you might think you are going to lose your vitality. Because the vitality of a nation, of a human being, of a group, depends on whether they are true to their self or not. If you are trying to be true to somebody else's self, something else, even if it is superior to you, you can never really vitally flourish. Energy is very important, and without energy you cannot grow. So this is crucial for all of us. We are all devotees and disciples of Mother and Aurobindo. But your approach, your expression, and my approach, and his approach, and his approach, and her approach will all always be different. We cannot express the same thing. And if you try to copy or imitate or become like somebody else, you might be successful, but you will never be your true self. And when you are not your true self, inevitably vitality goes. So this is a very important lesson. In politics, there is very often this attempt of one country to take over one country. First they do it militarily, then they do it politically, then they do it administratively, then they try to do it culturally. And if they succeed, you are going to die from within. If you can keep your culture, whatever happens, then you will, at some time or the other, however much you are suppressed, you will come back. And that is the whole strength of India. India has never been politically one. They have tried many times. It's only recently, after the British came, that we became politically one. But culturally, we have never been wiped out. We have still got the Vedas, we have still got the Upanishads, we have still got the Gita, we have still got the Puranas. Still, the old gods are there, and they are worshipped all over the country. Right? So, if you maintain your culture, your vitality is maintained. And if your vitality is maintained, sooner or later, you will get political unity also. Any question? No question? So now, the Romans succeeded because he made the Gauls and the Britons and the Africans feel proud that they are Roman culture. But then the vitality goes. When the vitality goes, you become rotten inside slowly. It takes time. And then, like a fruit in which there is an insect, you are eaten up completely. Ultimately, it will collapse. So, this is exactly why, unlike almost every other historian who say that the Roman Empire collapsed because of barbarian invasion, Aurobindo says it is not because of barbarian invasion, it is because of inner decay. That inner decay took place because they lost their vitality, because they were not true to their self.
In an age of globalization, when there is
In an age of globalization,
Yes.
when there is intermixing of cultures,
where there is intermixing of cultures,
how
And-
does one maintain their
So
true?
that is a very crucial point. Globalization is a very powerful phenomenon today. But without using the word globalization, interchange and interaction were there right from the ancient times. What has happened is that the scale has become very much bigger. Right? Now, every time you give up your culture, you will rot and you will not grow. The ruling nation, which has taken you over, they are afraid that if you allow them their culture, they will become too independent. So, in order to suppress you, they try to remove your culture. And this is exactly what today, especially in Tamil Nadu, the Christian missionaries are doing. By the thousands, and Vatican is pouring money, right? And they are trying to convert everybody and say, pray to Jesus, there is only one God and that is Jesus, etc., etc. It is a danger to the country, but they will not succeed. Because somewhere deep down, it is so well rooted, if it has lasted 5,000 years, there might be a temporary phase, but it is only in Tamil Nadu, nowhere else. You have something. You have
No, but
something.
it's really frantic there.
What?
It's really frantic in South, like
It is
the
really?
conversion.
it is really frantic in the South.
Yeah, they are.
And it leads to a sort of a loss of identity as well.
It leads to a loss of identity as well.
Yeah, that is true. In the short run, certainly it is a problem. But very fortunately, it is happening only in one or two states, right? Either Islam or Christianity are trying to convert. But today, there is a huge Hindu resurgence. Today, most people who are ashamed are saying very proudly, Garv se bolo Hindu hoon, right? Say with pride that I am a Hindu. So that has suddenly come up. And this will knock out all the other forces. And Aurobindo himself has written, somebody spoke about the danger of Hinduism being extinguished. He said Hinduism is not such a fluffy thing. It has already lasted 5,000 years. and it will last at least that much more. You see, because when there is a deep, profound truth, I mean, there are forces that will always oppose, but they cannot destroy that force. All right, so this is where.
Now, I have a point to ask you. You say that, or Sri Aurobindo has said that it rotted within.
Huh?
It rotted within.
Yes, as he says,
But that
decay.
is the Roman culture.
Huh?
The Roman leadership rotted within, not the people who were suppressed, because each individuality of a nation has to come back up.
See, the political power is very important, because if the political power does not allow, then you cannot express and manifest. Right? So that is why he says very little later, I'll read the sentence. All the living forces were destroyed, by whose contact it could have modified and renewed its own force. In the end, it had itself to be destroyed in its form and its principle, re-sown in the virgin field of the vital and vigorous culture of medieval Europe. One more sentence. What the Roman had not the wisdom to do by his organized empire had to be done by nature herself in the loose but living unity of medieval Christendom. So you see, when the Roman Empire collapsed, all these became separate, and they got their freedom to grow, and they were united by the Christian religion, because by that time the church had become, and it was the Dark Ages, it was the beginning of the Dark Ages, but Christianity kept culture alive, because it copied all the manuscripts, it kept the religious feeling, and it kept the whole thing going on. Then when the church became aggressive and dominant and corrupt, then there had to be a revolt against religion. That revolt took place in the 15th century by Martin Luther. Martin Luther knocked out the church, and Europe forsake religion, gave up religion, and took up reason. And even today, there is a very strong current of reason as the supreme instrument and religion as falsehood. It is coming back again a little bit. It is coming back through the back door of yoga. International Yoga Day is already a sign that it is moving in that line, right? So, but India has never rejected religion. India has always made a difference between religion and spirituality. And there have been periods of very great darkness when religion was dominant. But however dark it was, there were always some spiritual people alive who kept the flame going. And now it has come back again. And the Renaissance in India from 1860 or so, all spiritual men. Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Dayananda Saraswati. Right? And before also, every time it was dying, Chaitanya, Tukaram, somebody came up from Maharashtra. From South India has been more or less saved, because the Muslim invasion did not take place, or it took place in a very small amount, not in a big way. So the important thing is you have to be your true self. So that was the ancient empire. Modern empires, no chance. Individuality is too strong. No nation is willing to give up its individuality easily, because that is the result of the rational culture. Because individualism starts with a developed mind. When you don't have a developed mind, you are like the mob. Mob goes, one man goes, the whole mob goes behind without thinking. So that is the mob mentality. But today, reason has become the most important factor. Any decision that anybody has to take anywhere, he has to explain by reason, even in the ashram.
I would like to ask a little bit more about this danger, if you will, of conversion in Christianity and Islam. How do you see it ending?
You see, what has happened is Islam has been very closely associated in the recent years with terrorism.
Yeah.
So today, the moment you speak of Islam, they say ISIS, right? They say terrorism, they say danger. Now, Narendra Modi has been clever enough, he has never attacked Islam. Although today somebody sent me quotation after quotation from Islam, which is very aggressive. So I just told him that this is one side, there is another part of Islam which is good. It is not too much, but it is there. So let us not hit at the religion. Let us hit at the misuse of their religion. And that is where Islam is a danger. Because today everyone is worried. You see, look at Europe, all these migrants coming from Syria and Libya and all that. It has shaken Europe completely. And there are two schools of thought. You go to the net, you see something called Gatestone Institute. And you will see the articles that are coming there. They are very strongly against Islamic terrorism. And today, many governments, the British government, the French government, they are very deeply worried because these migrants are coming. If they get absorbed with the culture of England or France or Germany, it wouldn't matter. But what is happening is that they are imposing their own culture, the Shariat. So there are whole parts of these countries where you cannot enter unless you follow the Shariat.
Yes.
And it is beginning to happen in the United States also.
And Sweden.
Huh?
Sweden.
Sweden, it is in Europe, so it is much easier. United States was very far, so it was difficult for them to migrate so much, but it is starting. And terrorism is starting there. See now, when I say terrorism, there are two aspects for everything, and always I insist. There is a terrorism which is violent, which hits you, and then you notice it. But I can be terrorist because I hate you, because I would like to kill you. Only circumstances are not favorable, right? But I am already a terrorist. And you can't see that I am a terrorist. Right? So that terrorism is far more dangerous. And that has entered into America. Because now you don't agree with me, violence. That is the most dangerous thing. Right? So violence is inbuilt almost in terrorism. So now nobody is attacking Islam, everybody is attacking ISIS. And even Iraq, it had a fierce war against ISIS, and 10 days back they declared that they won the war. Right? But then now the Syrians and the Libyans were having hell in their own country. Unfortunately, there is big power rivalry also that is making it worse, right? America and Russia playing their games there. All these people are coming across to Europe, and Europe is having hell. And they are divided now. Some people say, no, we must be tolerant, we must say that they are killing, but never say they are killing by Islam. They are killing because they are violent people. But from where is the violence coming? They will justify it by a shloka from the Quran, a paragraph from the Quran. So they are trying to separate, they are trying to be. Now, according to this Gatestone Institute, Europe is destroying itself. And I have a friend, She's coming here in January. I'll invite her to this class. And I'll ask her to speak about France. When I'll raise the questions, she has gone to San Francisco and had a 3 months of intensive English training. So she can speak English. She could speak English, but now she can speak good, fluent English. So she will speak in English. If you want French, she can have it. But I don't think French. So except me, I think nobody will understand French. I talk to her always in French, but I write to her in English because sometimes I make mistakes. Anyway, this is very important, right? That this, what was the question actually?
Well, it was how to solve this problem. Now, in Christianity, they've taken a different
They have
way.
taken a very different way, persuasion and money.
Exactly.
You see, this is known as, I don't remember the year, but it was when Kennedy was President of the United States, that they sent something called the Peace Corps to India.
Yes.
Now, apparently very noble intentions, but they were all hard-boiled Christians. And India was suffering through a very difficult food problem. There was almost a famine, etc., etc. These people were very helpful. But every time a lady with an empty stomach, no food for 4 days, they say, we'll give you food, but become Christian. Very subtle.
Yeah.
No violence used, but your poverty and your weakness was exploited. Today it has become very difficult. Even the Peace Corps will not find it. Although the Vatican is doing its very best to Christianize the whole world. It's a plain fact. Vatican is supplying huge amounts of money. And unfortunately, in India, there are certain political leaders, no names, but they are receiving money directly from the Vatican because we have got a representative of the Vatican in Indian politics. So I don't think I'll go any further in this, but this is very important, right? So today, as Aurobindo says, in modern empires, everything has changed. It is impossible to ask people to give up their individuality. You can try, and then military conquest also is impossible today. And there might be temporary military conquest, but not for too long. And then the other phenomenon that he's speaking of, and that is very important, is that a new tendency, which is now very strong, this book was written 100 years back, is to have a world culture. And this world culture, he wrote then, has now increased and increased and increased and increased. And ultimately, there will be a world culture which will at the same time preserve your national culture. So you see, one of the movements of the world culture is the Amnesty International. Treating prisoners, that third degree punishment, they are trying to eliminate. These are not based on religion, they are based on the human being. You must treat the human being gently, decently. This third degree punishment and capital punishment, can they be abolished? Amnesty International says abolish it completely. But the governments, when you have a terrorist who comes and plants a bomb here and kills you, or kills all of us, he is part of an organization. He is arrested. How do you get information out of him? You have to punish him. Or you can get it by talk and persuasion. A big discussion going on this. The political leaders, they are practical. They say, look, we have to get information. If we don't get information, more people will be killed. So we'll use any method to get the information. The intellectuals, the thinkers, the ordinary man who is not suffering, he will insist on the human element. Probably there is a truth in both. And I would say that reduce the element of force and brutal punishment to the minimum. But there are times when you have to do it. Because by torturing one man, you are saving 100 lives. What is your opinion on this?
I don't think so. I
Huh?
don't think torture is the way to victory.
So she is against torture.
Yes.
Andre? Under no circumstance will we torture.
But
Loud.
this you told that abolition of this capital punishment and third degree.
I am not saying they are right. I am saying this is a point that is being
Which
discussed.
is happening discussion, but the terrorist and other violent forces may use this as a disadvantage. They take disadvantage of this.
Of
They may
what?
take
They would
abolition.
they
of-
would take advantage of abolition of
You see, that's why there are two sides
Yeah.
to this story. And I think I told you last time
what mother said. Yes.
about that,
Yeah.
what mother said.
Yes.
Mother used to distribute groundnuts in the playground. All the groups would be standing like this in a square. And we would not go to her. She would come to us. And she would discuss, she would give one handful, right? And there was someone who was carrying the groundnuts, and she would take and give. She would talk to some people sometimes. That was a way of keeping contact with individuals. So we were the young men's group, so we were last. And we were waiting for her. It took almost 20 minutes. So a discussion was taking place among the few of us, capital punishment or no capital punishment. So some were for capital punishment, some were against capital punishment. When mother came there, she saw that we were a little animated. So she asked, what is the discussion? So we said, she said, you cannot give an answer like that. Capital punishment is sometimes indispensable. Right? Those whom you can change, try your best to change them. But there are some people whom you cannot change, whose psychic being is like a dot, so small that it is not. Then the question comes immediately, who is to decide about the psychic being? Can I look at you and say how much your psychic being is developed? For that, I must be in touch with my own psychic being. Because there is always like that recognizes like. So, now that was a question that, so mother said there is no answer. You have to go within. You have to find from within. But to say that there will be no capital punishment, she doesn't agree at all. Because if you eliminate capital punishment, there are some people who will not change. They come out and again. And you will find that if you look at the record of criminals, they come out after 10 years and again the same thing. And again the same things.
I think that you said also once that mother said you have to see if the soul wants to go.
Yes, the psychic being wants to go.
Yeah.
Now how do I see?
But capital punishment is not the same as torture. Those are two different things.
So I have no position against either of them. I feel, and every government feels, that there are times when you have to torture.
If I may, I want to say, ask you, have you ever read that book, The Lost Footsteps?
I have read all these books. That is not a problem. It is not by reading books that you run a country.
No, I want to
The
mention.
political leaders have to take a decision. And when they try to get information which will save another 500 people from being killed, they don't mind torturing somebody to get more news. Now you can read any amount of books, including Aurobindo, but when the practical decision has to be taken, quoting a book has no meaning at all.
No, what? May I say what I wanted to
Yes,
say?
yes, you can say.
Okay, in this book, this man from Romania,
I have read the book.
yeah, okay, he was being tortured and he wanted to commit suicide. Sri Aurobindo appeared to him.
And then Aurobindo came
Yes,
to
we
him.
know that story. But
We all know it.
No, what I want to say is that the three responses to suffering that Sri Aurobindo gives in that book, he says the first response is you can let it destroy you. The second is you can do something worse than what was done to you. And the third is you can grow in strength and grace.
Is it true for all human beings?
Yeah, I would say.
So that is
Because
your
if
opinion.
if you feel there's a point of the divine in every person, even the worst possible person, then what right do you have to torture him?
No, that is for you to decide. That is your opinion. But if you are in the government, I would like to see what you do. If you are the Prime Minister of the country, you allow all the criminals free and change them by inner. If you can do that, I'll be very happy. But practical people don't accept that. What do you say? I want to know your opinion. Alexi,
Say,
can you make a rule that no capital punishment, no torture?
Cannot.
No.
No.
Also no. Narad?
no.
See, everybody says no except Patty.
all I say is that the only thing I've read in Sri Aurobindo about capital punishment, he said it's against the religion of humanity. So what do you say about
See,
that?
that's why I'm saying you're picking up one sentence in one place. I'll show you sentences where he has said the opposite thing.
Well, show me, because I'm not aware. I'm
No,
just
whether you
asking
are.
what you think
So
of
I'm
that.
not interested in convincing you at all. So I'm not going to take the trouble of finding out to convince you, right? So you have to take the trouble yourself to read.
I have. Okay.
No, if you have a problem which is disturbing you, you should go to Sri Aurobindo and read him, no? Not expect me to search and then find out for you.
No, I asked you what you think of this.
I think very clearly that you cannot make any
Capital
mental
punishment is
rule,
against the religion of
any
humanity.
mental rule on any side is limited. Because the mind is not an instrument of truth. That is more fundamental for me. So, there is an opinion, it has its truth. There is the opposite opinion, that also has its truth. Right? So, to
Sri
go-
Aurobindo makes this very clear, and
Absolutely.
he states only those things are true, the opposite of which are also true
then why do you
in
argue
their
for one
own
side?
time and application.
Then why argue on one side and go on insisting that there should be no capital punishment?
I
There
didn't
is a
insist,
truth
you asked my
in
opinion.
certain cases, but in most cases I would try to reduce it to the absolute minimum. But I will not make a general rule and say, because if you make a general rule and say no capital punishment, you are going against the very position of Sri Aurobindo.
I didn't say no capital punishment. I
And
said
no torture.
Those are two different things, sir.
No, then
With
there is
all
nothing to
respect-
discuss. If you are not saying that, then
No, she said torture was what she meant.
that
I
also
didn't
might.
say no capital punishment. I only said, all I've read on in Sri Aurobindo about capital punishment, he said is against the religion of humanity. That's the only thing. I have never read that he said there should be no capital punishment.
So we conclude chapter 6 today.
So, anyway, the important thing is that he says the old idea is not entirely dead. There are still those who dream of a Christianized India. The English tongue permanently dominating, if not replacing, the indigenous languages, and the acceptance of European culture and European social forms. But India will accept a few things, Asia will accept a few things which are good in those countries. But beyond a point, it will say no more. So you see, India is a wonderful example of that. It has accepted all the invading cultures, it has accepted some of them. That is why it is the only country where all the religions are vibrantly alive. Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism, atheism, agnosticism. You name what you like. They have all got their place here. But beyond a certain point, the general mind of India will not accept. They will preserve their own culture. Of course, there are fanatics in India also who are very Hindu, very aggressively Hindu. But they are a fringe. They are a small minority, right? So there is no need to give it too much importance. The majority of Hindus will accept every other culture in this country, right? So the important thing is that this attempt of subjecting India to Christianity is bound to fail. The Vatican can pour any amount of money, but it will not succeed. There is a danger. Now, the last sentence. Now, the question is, we started with this question, can the empire be converted into a psychological entity? Only then it can last, because that which is not psychologically true will be of short duration. Now, he is moving on, very practical. Let us not look at the empire first. Let us look at smaller units. Because nations were not born 10,000 years back. They've all been formed over the years, right? England became a nation in the 16th century, France became a nation, European nations became early, then other nations began to come, politically one, right? Culturally there was sometimes there and sometimes not there. So now we are going to the nation. And the nation itself is not homogeneous. It is very heterogeneous. Angles, Saxons, Druids, Normans in England, small country. Today 50 million, at that time it was not even 10, 12 million. All these different elements were there. How do you unite them? Right? So that is the problem that he is going to take up. Because if we learn our lessons from that, then you learn on a bigger scale. When you want to build a house, a big house, you go to an architect and see other houses. Smaller houses might be, but you get the principles. So he is doing exactly the same thing. The creation of the heterogeneous nation. Because no nation is homogeneous. Agreed? Every nation is mixed up of, and America is a pot where almost everything has got in, and you have to unite them. No? India also has got almost everything. Right? Other countries are a little more isolated. But today the problem is there because migration is taking place not only of Muslims but of Christians, of poverty-stricken people from one country to another country. Sometimes they move only because of poverty, not because of religion. So now we are moving toward that heterogeneity, which is the essence of global culture today. I think we'll stop.
Thanks.